They want to go 10 times by election, I'll win 10 times. They're not in for money, they're in for real development. I'm the first gentleman of Assin North right now. Thank you.
Tonight, the defiance of Assin North MP-elect James Gyakye galvanizes NDC support for him as they storm the courts in his first appearance for his criminal trial after his victory in the by-elections. We tell you why the NDC is insisting MP-elect will not get a fair trial if his criminal case is heard on a daily basis. Also tonight, former GMPC boss Alex Mould tells High Court he has so far not seen any document showing that Minority Leader Dr. Atafoksing was authorized to write two controversial letters forming the basis of the state's case against him. We have details as former Health Minister Alex Segbefia, who was supposed to testify today, failed to show up.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. He had his first day before the courts for his criminal trial since his resounding victory in the Assin North by-election today. And James Gyakye wasted no time sounding defiant despite facing the prospect of a long time behind bars if he's convicted.
I can go back 10 times and I'm going to be winning 10 times. I don't have any worries about doing my work. So nobody can break us apart. And if they want to go 10 times by election, I'll win 10 times. I can assure you that. No, they're not in for money. They're in for real development. They want their lives fixed. So for today, all I can say again is I'm the first gentleman of Assin North right now. Thank you.
Let me bring in our court correspondent, Blay, who was there for us today. And Blay, he came from the background sound you're hearing. It appears the crowd that accompanied him was pretty massive. True?
Yes, true, Evans. In fact, not all of them could even find places in the courtroom. A number of them actually stood across the law court complex holding placards with various inscriptions. Some read, Honorable Quayson is our MP, nothing can stop him. Others said, we want James Gyakye, among others. More than 30 of them stood outside the court premises holding those placards all through the over 2-hour period when he was in the courtroom for proceedings. And he was accompanied by some of his colleagues from parliament like Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who came to support him. And the NDC's communications officer, Sammy Jemfi, also joining over there. They went into the courtroom as well, a number of them making their way in there. Some of the supporters managed to get into the courtroom, and at various points in time when they were coming out, they kept singing various songs and making the point. There was an interesting one they were singing, Evans, saying that they have taken Opoku's money, they have chopped Opoku's money, but they have voted for James Gyakye.
And tell us about this point that his lawyers have been making in court today, that they do not believe he will get a fair trial. The NDC has been making that point quite firmly also. And we've been hearing from, you've been speaking to the NDC post the court hearing today, in which they drum home that point. What's that about?
In fact, remember, once it's an issue that we dealt with a lot before the election took place. They had submitted to the court statements that were made by the Attorney General Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, which they deemed to be prejudicial, making the point that the AG had likened the case of James Quayson to that of Adamu Sakande, who we all know ended up in jail eventually. And so they make the point that those comments were prejudicial. They submitted it to the court. The court, in its ruling, in which it sustained its decision that the case will be held on a daily basis, took the view that those statements that were provided to it were not relevant in determining whether to hear the trial on a daily basis. Now, they make the point in this new application per documents they have filed in court that after that court ruling, it emboldened the government and the president, for that matter, to proceed to make more prejudicial comments. And so they make reference to a statement that the president made as part of the campaign activities during the build-up to the Assin North election, where he said that why would they vote for someone who may end up in prison? Of what benefit will it be to them if they vote for such an individual? Now, they've attached that statement to this particular document that they filed to make the point that, look, This is because the court failed to take note of the initial one that was made by the Attorney General. The natural sense make reference to the prosecution of the lead counsel for James Quayson, Chatu Chikata, by the president when he was Attorney General, to make the point that in that time there were similar comments that were made, and eventually Mr. Chikata was incarcerated till he eventually managed to set that aside through challenging the process at the Court of Appeal. And so they say that they have seen this happen before, and when the comments are coming in this regard, it leads them to no other but one conclusion, that they are not going to get a fair trial, for which reason they are challenging the court's decision at the Court of Appeal.
And did the court buy this argument?
In fact, the court did not even have the opportunity to go into it in the first place. And the reason being that the judge did indicate that the process that had been filed, it had received notice that the process had been filed, but had not received a full complement. Again, we understand the AG's office will also be filing documents opposing it. That has also not been firmed up and made available to the court as well. And so the court said that it was adjourning proceedings to July 4, which was already a date that the court had fixed, that it was after that date that the day-to-day hearing will be taking place. So on July 4, the court will come and have the legal arguments take place, and it will be a question of should the James Gyakye Quayson trial be put on hold pending the Court of Appeal deciding whether or not the High Court got it right in opting to hold the trial on a daily basis.
And you've been speaking to the party's communications officer, who was in court himself, a lawyer. What has he been telling you?
He makes the point quite forcefully that as far as they are concerned, they think that the comments that have been made by the AG and the president points to the fact that in the manner that the trial intends to progress, they will not get a fair trial, for which reason the trial should be put on hold.
In errors of law which were committed by the trial judge in that ruling, and how these errors of law violates Honorable Quayson's right to a fair trial. And so that appeal is pending in the Court of Appeal, and today we're hoping that lawyers would have gotten the opportunity to move the application for stay of proceedings, but due to a few challenges, the affidavit in opposition to that application not being served on lawyers for Honorable Quayson and not being on the file of the trial judge, the matter has been adjourned to Tuesday, the 4th of July, 2023. So we'll be coming back next week, Tuesday, for that application for stay of proceedings. What that basically means is that the High Court should wait for the Court of Appeal to determine whether or not it was right in ruling that the matter should be heard on a daily basis. So that is where we are now.
I mean, we've seen the copy of the application. We realize that you make reference to some comments that the president made prior to the election. I mean, one would have thought that with this particular election done and dusted, he will be open to having the case dealt with in a fast manner so that he can go back to his work of representing the people. Why does he still have issues with the day-to-day hearing?
Well, if you read the application for stay of proceedings and even the notice of appeal, you realize that lawyers for Honorable Quayson are raising very serious issues bordering on prejudicial and irresponsible comments that have been made by no less a person than the President of the Republic of Ghana, who is the appointer of the trial judge presiding over the case. The lawyers for Honorable Quayson have also cited prejudicial comments by the Attorney General and Minister for Justice and other leading members of the New Patriotic Party. I'm sure those of you in the media are very much aware of some of these irresponsible and prejudicial comments, which suggest that our friends in government have a certain predetermined outcome in their mind, which they are working at. And therefore, it is important for the trial to proceed in a manner that assures the accused and his lawyers that he will get a fair trial. Yes, justice delayed is justice denied, but justice hurried is also justice buried.
And Joseph, stay with me, because there was another major case today involving the minority leader that I'll have to talk about, the significant developments there during the cross-examination. But I want to go to Parliament now, where the James Gyakye Quayson matter is still pretty live. I want to bring in parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante, who is joining me right now. Kweku, so we understand now that his swearing in may delay. Why? Okay, we'll get Kweku's attention back and get him back on the telephone line as we wait the Electoral Commission understand to clear the path for the swearing in, but there appears to have been a minor hitch there. Kweku will clarify that for us. We've been working the lines to try and get clarity from the Electoral Commission. Understand that it was in a busy day after the holiday, before, of course, on Tuesday that they had gone into the polls in Assin North. Kweku, what's holding up his swearing in Parliament?
So the expectation is that the Electoral Commission would have to send what is called the instrument of elections. Parliament knows that Gyakye Quayson has been elected, but officially the Electoral Commission, which organized the election, has not communicated to Parliament that Gyakye Quayson has won the election. That means that the Electoral Commission formally will have to write to the Speaker of Parliament asking him to swear in Gyakye Quayson. We know that Parliament wrote to the EC to tell them that there was a vacancy, and so they could go ahead to conduct a by-election. The reciprocal is expected, and the EC is expected to write back. Just when Parliament came back from its break, it did seem swearing in for the Kumewu by-election and the MP-elect NS Yawenim. They have to rely on that election instrument presented by the Electoral Commission before they could do so. Our understanding is that Parliament expected that they were going to be able to get this documentation as early as this morning and try and see if they could do the swearing in. But that did not come in because yesterday was a holiday and the EC had gone to the offices trying to get the documentation through. So the expectation is that by close of day today, by close of business, and the Speaker's office would have been closed by now, we expect that by 5 p.m. the EC would have taken this election instrument to the Speaker of Parliament to enable them swear in Gyakye Quayson tomorrow. NDC MPs came in today expecting that would be done. Most of them wearing white, ready to cheer on Gyakye Quayson to take on his second oath. That would be the second time he would have taken the oath of a member of Parliament, but that did not happen. And the expectation now is that it will happen tomorrow. And
this is pretty critical for the NDC because they're desperate to restore the balance in Parliament to 137-137. Of course, there's this tiebreaker of the independent.
Right, Evans. The last time there was a critical business in Parliament having to do with the three taxes, the only reason why the minority were not able to reject those taxes as they had said was because they did not have the numbers. The NPP side had 137 because the Kumewu MP at the time was not available. But if James Gyakye Quayson was also available for the minority, then they were going to be able to reject that, and they did not succeed in doing so because Gyakye Quayson was not available. Once Gyakye Quayson is sworn in, it restores parity in the House, 137 apiece on both sides, representing the NPP and the NDC side, but the majority having a one member advantage because of the independent MP for Famena who has decided that he will caucus with the majority. The minority leader has been saying all along that they are desperate for Gyakye Quayson to return. It increases their bargaining power in the House, and it also allows them to be able to, quote and unquote, frustrate government business or be able to reject some of the things that government is bringing in. Already, when Parliament signaled that it was coming back from its Easter break, there was this announcement from the majority chief whip that they expected some tax bills to come through again. The minority had already insisted that that will not be countenanced in the House. But they will not be able to succeed if they don't have Gyakye Quayson. And so they are very much looking forward to Gyakye Quayson swearing in, which will restore parity in the House, which will mean that the majority will need, at all point in time when decisions have to be taken, they will need all their MPs on the floor, including Sarah Adjua-Safo, who's been coming in every now and then, but not as consistent as you would expect. But she's been coming in, unlike the previous time where she went away for close to a year. So that is the dynamics in the House. And once Gyakye Quayson comes in, Osei Chairman Sabonsu and Frank Anodom, their work is clearly cut out for them. They will have to bring on the floor of the Parliament all 137 plus that independent MP whenever there's any crucial government business to be decided on.
Okay, and thank you very much, Kweku. I want to bring in right now Sammy Jamefi, who is the NDC National Communications Officer. You may have seen him. He never left the side of James Gyakye in the Assin North by-election in that constituency. He joins us on the telephone line right now. Also joining us is his counterpart in the NPP, is the National Communications Director of the NPP as well, Richard Ayagba. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Evans.
So, let me start with you. And I guess congratulations are in order. First time we are talking since the victory that you chalked. And I'm curious, is this your first national elections victory, not involving yourself, since you ascended to the position of National Communications Officer?
Evans, we went into the 2020 elections as a party. At the time, I was a National Communications Officer. And with all the electoral manipulations of the Electoral Commission and the then ruling NPP, we won 137 seats. So it will not be correct to say that this is the first national election that the party has gone into.
What I mean is, I was just talking about the victory, considering, what you saw on Tuesday. But how does it feel, being the man we saw you on television? Almost everywhere you went with him.
Well, I was excited at the end of the day that the hard work we put in paid off. I was excited that the good people of Assin North rose above the inducements from the ruling NPP, their shenanigans, their lies, the character assassination, and so on and so forth, and decided to stand by the truth, stand for justice, and to vote for Honorable James Gyakye Quayson and demonstrate to the whole world that he is one of their own. They have absolute confidence in his leadership, and they trust that he can give them the representation they need in the August House of Parliament. So, if you ask me how do I feel great that all the sacrifices, all the hard work we put in paid off at the end of the day.
So it paid off. And have you rested this off yet, or you are still basking in the glow of
we are still in there, working at the swearing in of the newly re-elected member of parliament for Assin North, and also then working on some victory rallies that have to be organized this weekend. And more importantly, Thanksgiving service to thank God for this victory, and also some visitations to those who unfortunately got injured in the process of the campaigning, either through a vehicular accident or unwarranted physical attacks on themselves by hoodlums belonging to the New Patriotic Party. So the work has not come to an end yet. We are not resting, but I believe that by next week, Tuesday, everything will be over, at least for this phase of the by-election. But the real work is recapturing power in 2024, which for me is what this victory signifies. Because this Assin North by-election was not just a mere election for a member of parliament. It was more or less a midterm election, more or less a referendum on the performance of the corrupt, nepotistic, wasteful, and reckless Akufo-Addo Bawumia government. And if what the people of Assin North have decided is anything to go by, then what that shows is that Ghanaians are tired of the wastage, they are tired of the abuse of the public purse, they are tired of the hardships and the economic collapse we are witnessing under the failed NPP Akufo-Addo Bawumia government. And that change is coming, and change will arrive come 7th December 2024.
Richard Ayagba, you agree with the conclusions reached by Sammy Jamefi on the back of that victory?
Thank you, Evans. Well, we need to put in perspective what just happened in Assin North. Sammy's conclusion is his conclusion because he feels it helps their cause. But what happened in Assin North is no news. especially because it was the NDC seats to lose anyway to begin with, just as much as it was our seats to lose in Kumawu to begin with. So if the NDC succeeded in retaining their seat, there is nothing novel about it. But then if we had won it, then you will have some indication of the future from that. And so really, the conclusions that is reaching for me is convenient. I suppose if I were in his stead, I would do the same thing. But there's nothing extraordinarily groundbreaking about retaining your seat, which you should have or you are supposed to do to start with. But somebody went on a little run there to talk about lies and government inducement or party inducement. You see, those things are just not true. In a sense that, Evans, if you came to Assin North, I am worried where we are about the future of our elections, where that you have a political party on the back of blatant lies. And I want somebody to tell us what some of the lies that he thinks that the NPP was spreading. But I can tell you 2 grand lies, or perhaps 3, or even 4 grand lies that the NDC was peddled, and that was their central campaign message. The essential proposition to the people was that, one, that they want them to vote for the NDC's Mr. Gyakye Quayson because government wants to remove him from Parliament so we can have way to pass LGBTQ or to legalize LGBTQ in Ghana. Blatant falsehood, but that was their message. Number 2, that this government or this MPP party was persecuting Gyakye Quayson for no wrong done.
Are you not
blatant falsehood?
Are you not persecuting him? And there are many who believe that. And if you speak to the constituents who talk to us in the day, many of them hold that view too.
Yes, but that's just because the NDC fed them that lie. It's not true. And it's not true, Evans. Even if people believe it, it's not true. Because why? The man breached the law. And if he breached the law and he went to court to try to prove that he didn't, but the court found that to be not tenable, that they believe the Supreme Court's view of the situation suggests that you have breached the law. Now, at what point is that MPP? Is the MPP on the Supreme Court? So that's a blatant falsehood. Whether you agree with it or not, you cannot say for a fact that it was the MPP who is persecuting him. And in any case, that he has done no wrong. So if he had gotten his papers in order, and about the case with the Jomo MP, what was the outcome of that? I think it's Dorcas Toffee, right? She went to court, was able to show evidence, and she won the case. Why is that not a persecution also? So it was a blatant lie that the NDC went to Kumawu to feed the people. And I think it's disrespectful to the people, but that's what they said. And they did so because they felt that was the only message they had. And truly, that was the only proposition they had for the people. And the other lie they were telling was to foist on our candidate that he is a garantia, which is blatant falsehood.
They won the election.
Evans, can I come in?
Yes, I mean, you will.
Let me just conclude for you.
Just a second.
The point I was trying to make to you is that, yes,
the NDC won the elections.
Had retained their seat.
Yes.
Are you with me?
I'm with you. The NDC won that election. Are you suggesting that they deceived the voters?
But I just told you that their central message, and if you think that is true, then that will be your conclusion. But
if you suggest
that the New Patriotic Party want to legalize LGBTQ, that's why they want Gyakye Quayson out of Parliament. It's blatant falsehood.
Okay, stay with me, Sammy. Was that a strategy? Is that how you spin the message there on the ground?
Him out of Parliament for no wrong done. That's a blatant falsehood.
Yeah, Richard, stay with me. Let me hear from Sammy.
Yeah, there are two things.
But you didn't let me conclude, Evans. I just went to line for you so I can go to him.
Just a second.
So the point I was making to you is that on this central message that I've given you, and you confirm that people repeated that to you somehow because they believe it, the NDC told them, is evidence of the fact that the NDC really did share that message.
Yeah,
and those
Richard,
are false.
Stay with me. Let me hear from Sammy.
Yeah.
Okay. The first comment Richard made is very intriguing. Richard says that the Assin North parliamentary seat was the NDC's to lose. In other words, I never knew that Assin North is a stronghold of the NDC. But I'm happy to accept that if the MPP now wants the whole world to believe that Assin North is a stronghold of the NDC, just as Kumawu is the stronghold of the MPP, then I will say hallelujah to that. But every student of politics in Ghana who has followed election outcomes since the Assin North constituency was created in 2012 will know that what Richard is saying is a convenient lie calculated to cover up their monumental failure as leaders of the ruling MPP. Because Assin North is a swing seat. As a matter of fact, the member of parliament for Assin North for 2012 was an NDC person. 2016, MPP. In fact, in 2020, when we won the parliamentary seat, the presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, won the presidential elections. President Mahama had a little over 15,000 votes. President Akufo-Addo had over 16,000 votes. You understand? So how can you describe such a seat as an NDC stronghold? Well, I'm happy that Richard is prophesying positively relative to the political coloration of Assin North. We accept Assin North as a stronghold of the NDC, and this is not coming from Sami Jenvit, it's coming from the communications director of the NPP, Richard Ahiagba, who lacks the humility to accept that they have been beaten in a competitive election, not in a stronghold, but in a swing seat, because they had a bad message, they had a bad strategy, they had a bad candidate, they had bad ethics, they had a bad attitude, and so on and so forth. Now, let's come to the second point he makes, which is basically to the effect that we peddled falsehood during the campaign. Evans, you don't have ample time for me to respond to the issues he has raised. But what I can tell you is that everything Richard has told you as a central theme of our message in this Assin North by-election are completely false. But granted that what he's even saying is true, does he really understand what he's saying? What he's saying or what he's doing is that he's insulting the intelligence of the good people of Assin North. He's telling the good people of Assin North that they are not discerning. They are not able to decipher truth from falsehood. And that they are so gullible, so unintelligent, that they bought the lies of the NDC, for which reason they vote for Gyakye Quayson. Come on, Richard. Credit the good people of Assin North with some intelligence and respect. They deserve respect from you guys. The fact that they voted against you, despite all the monies you shared, despite all the vote-buying projects, despite the intimidation, despite the lies and so on, doesn't mean you should insult them. You guys should learn to respect human beings. These are discerning people who know what is good for them. They voted for Gyakye Quayson in 2020, and they have told you to your face that no amount of judicial manipulation, no amount of intimidation or harassment of their own choice can get them to ditch him for a person who doesn't even vote.
You've repeated the claim of judicial manipulation, something that Richard mentions. Where's the evidence in that? He mentioned your other candidate, MP, Madam Toffee, who, after the trial, was discharged, acquitted and discharged. In Gyakye Quayson's case, this case is only continuing because the state believe there is a case for him to answer. How is that judicial manipulation?
I mean, who followed the Quayson trial, in the Quayson case in the Supreme Court, cannot but come to the conclusion that the decision which was rendered by the Supreme Court on the Quayson matter was totally wrong. In the Jomoro matter, what happened? Was the election annulled or upheld on the basis of legal arguments? No. There was a full trial. Witnesses were called, including expert witnesses, who came to testify to the court about the issue of renunciation when it takes effect, the foreign law of the country in question, Ivory Coast, and so on. for which reason the court arrived at a conclusion that the MP, Honorable Dorcas, did not owe allegiance to any other country aside Ghana at the time of her election. But in the case of Honorable Quayson, in the Cape Coast High Court, no witnesses were called. No evidence was even taken by the court to establish the issue of his allegiance to Canada. Rather, Wikipedia was strangely cited by the judge in arriving at a conclusion on a matter of foreign law, which is never done, in our jurisprudence. So it is the more reason why I say that what has happened to Honorable Quayson in the Assin North matter is a glaring case of injustice. And I'm happy that the court of public opinion, I'm happy that the good people of Assin North, in whom sovereignty relies, I am happy that the courts of heaven, presided over by God Almighty, have told our courts that what they have done is unjust, and that Honorable James Gyakye Quayson deserves to be the member of parliament for the good people of Assin North. And I think our brothers in the MPP should stop wasting their time.
And finally, Richard, just a minute there. I mean, the fact that the people of Assin North gave him that resounding victory isn't that the surest evidence yet that they disagreed with the way he was treated. You have suggested that he bought into a lie, that they were deceived. Some argues that is questioning the intelligence. You agree?
Well, I mean, you don't expect somebody to say any different. But first of all, let me just correct him briefly. I didn't use the word stronghold. When I said it was their election to lose, the import was that it was their seat. And I used the word, if they retain their seat, there's nothing novel about it. So somebody can go on that run to misquote me if he wants. Now, you see, we didn't mean any insults for the people of Assin North. What we went to Assin North, our message was simply development. And we went around and showed what we have done in that constituency for the people of Assin North. The other aspect of our message was to try to deflect the obvious, blatant lies that the NDC was peddling. And here you, Evans, you concede that people repeated to you and sort of appear to believe that indeed somehow government was orchestrated to remove him, which is not true. And I sometimes worry that in the media, the moderation of our conversation should include checkmating us and say, look, as far as this is concerned, we know that the man had breached the law. Now, whether or not you agree with the court, this is what happened, so that you keep the political parties on.
He breached one law.
It is a blatant falsehood for anybody to suggest that a new